So, okay, so let's jump into, let me share my screen because I always forget to do that. So let's jump into some setup here. Everybody see that? Should be looking at a github.com repo, and it should be a little larger probably. Let's do that. How does that look for everyone?
Good.
Okay.
Good.
So course materials. So basically the course material consists of two repos. It's this github.com/WALQUIS, and then the repo name is Git Basics Team Project. So feel free to go there. Let me see if I can I show chat at the same time? One second here. To figure out my environment. There it is. Okay. So yeah. One more second. So so this is the repo that has the curriculum in it. It is reachable actually through this link. So tiny little tangent. This link is it goes to a different URL, but the URL is created by something that GitHub uses to generate pages from this source code. So the documentation, curriculum is in this source code here, which Git actually tries to render file by file if you click around in here, but this is not the right place to look at it because this is the source for the pages. GitHub uses something called Jekyll. There's some wiring up you can do to tell Git that this is my place for my pages that I want rendered. And so the curriculum introduction is that rendered version of all that source. So when we click here, this is that rendered curriculum. So if that makes sense, same repo goes to a different place on Git, something called GitHub.io, and so it looks nice. So that's one repo. The other repo that we will work with, I'm going to back up here a little bit. It's mentioned further down. This is the sample project repo, which is actually a different repo in the same organization. So Git Basic Sample Project repo is what we'll be dealing with here. And all this is once we kind of in the afternoon get into doing some project work, if you wonder kind of what to do to this repo to build something, this is an example of something you can build. Basically an HTML static site, no web frameworks, just HTML, but it gives us a chance to do changes as a project team and understand Git by stumbling around and getting merge conflicts and having to deal with those, for instance. So this is something we can look at. It's as if a project team had already gone through the day and done some things in their repo and what it might look like. So it gives us something concrete to look at with these concepts. So those are those two repos. Any questions so far? Everybody good? So that being the case, we will go to setting up your environment. So the first thing you want to do, if you haven't already, is the project team person will go to their place and create a Git repo. So if you're the project lead, you can go to your place on Git. Oh, that's the wrong Git. GitHub.com. So here's me. You would go to repositories, which you've probably done this before. Set up a new one. You as the project lead, do this all, and then you would invite your team to that repo. So you'll all be working with the same repo, which will be your project team leads repo. Again, bypassing all the nice things about GitHub, including fork and pull requests and all that. That's all GitHub. That's not Git. We're just going to keep it very simple, work with one repo, and initially even just on one branch. We'll discuss branching a little bit more later. So have any project team leads not been able to do this or have questions about this? So for instance, if I have a repo created, then I can go to its settings. Let me make it a little bit smaller so I can see what I expect to see. So there's settings here, and you can add collaborators. If I were to go through that process, I would add collaborators there. I don't have my password handy. So once you've done that, then people can clone that repo. So let's pretend that that is happening, and I'll actually go ahead and run through an example of that myself. So new repo. I don't care if anybody sees it. I'll add a README file. I need to description. Still not letting me do something. What am I not doing?
Is it select owner?
Select owner. Why is it not? Skip this step. Okay, I would assume that GitHub would work.
I mean, back at the top, the select owner, I think you have to select yourself.
Oh, excellent. Yes, thank you, sir. Creates it. Okay. So then I would select a protocol to use, basically. HTTPS is fine for now. I don't know if anyone has worked with SSH. That ends up being handier, but there's a little bit of setup involved with that, involving SSH keys, but I'll go into that later if we get time, or if somebody wants me to cover that. But for now, we'll just use HTTPS. I usually keep an SRC directory and a CP for Code Platoon. So, oh, by the way, so I've started up my terminal, and I know you guys are working with Visual Studio Code, and that's cool. I usually, for command line stuff, I usually just go to the terminal app, because there is less sort of confusion about what the environment might be with just having the terminal versus having a layer of this Visual Studio Code in between, and then it popping open a sub process. So if you know how to navigate that landscape, then feel free, but I just stay with the terminal because it's there's less magic involved. So here I am in my src/cp directory, and now I can do a git clone as the project lead of this new repo. So far, so good. Okay.
Hey, real quick, Chris.
Yeah.
If we didn't fork it before we cloned it, is that going to cause any issues?
We are not going to deal with forks today.
Oh, for some reason I thought I saw you. Okay.
Just clones. So that's why the project team lead is the one that makes the repo and then
Oh,
invites
okay.
collaborators. to
Okay,
it.
you were just showing creating it and, okay, I thought you were forking one, but got it. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, just a clone. Yeah, good question. Yeah, anything that has to do with forks and pull requests is that layer, that social coding layer around Git, which is again important, but not necessary for the basics. All that's built on what we're covering today. So, okay, here we are. We're not actually in that directory, even though we've created it. So we can do a CD into that directory, which is our Git repo. So what do we have so far? We have an empty repo. It is the entire history. So unlike other version control systems that you may run across, like Subversion, for instance, the repo that you have on your local machine is the entire repo, not just the current snapshot of the repo, which enables you to do a lot of things you couldn't do if you were dependent upon a server that you had to be connected to in order to do your code and version control. So let's switch back to the curriculum here for a moment and do some more setup. What I'm going to do now is walk through getting some aliases in place. I should ask, how familiar are people with Linux or Mac OS?
I think we're like 50% in the class Windows.
50% Windows? Oh boy.
I think the
Maybe-
rest, I think there's 3 of us that are actually working on Linux.
Okay. How many have Macs? One.
Team Mac.
Team Mac? Okay.
What aspect of Linux or Mac in particular are you curious about, Chris?
Well, it's more any sort of Unix flavor would be what this course is oriented toward. It can work in Windows, certainly, but alias.
In terms, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, go ahead. I was thinking of setting up some aliases, but that may not be fruitful for if there's
I think they're right. It's probably about 70% Mac Linux,
Okay.
percent Windows.
Okay.
Also,
So
also the people who use Windows usually use the Linux subsystem. So the WSL. Yeah. So
okay. All right. Then we're good.
Mhm.
Yeah. Then everything that I'm doing here should drop directly into that. So cool. Let's go through that then. So what I was wanting to do is set up some aliases, which are basically just shortcuts that you can put into your environment to, just to make your life easier. So for instance, I have to remember where I put that. I think it's in the objects and trees exercise. Yes, here we go. So setting up Git aliases. This is actually going to be in the sample project repo. So if you haven't done this already, then do a git clone that thing that I chatted earlier. GitHub.com, Walquist, Git basics. Sorry, not the sample project repo, the team repo. So yeah, the Git basics team project, I believe is where I'm keeping this. Sorry, I'm not more organized up front about where things are at, but I believe this is where I want to go.
Chris, for us, would that be what our team leader made?
Good question. Yeah, this is something everybody can do. Is clone down this Git basics team project. What I just did right here.
But what folder would we be cloning it into?
You could make it a peer of Romeo. So, I'm in the CP folders where I put things, and Romeo is one of those. And you could just put that right next to Romeo is what will happen here. So if I've done this, it's happened. Now I do an ls, and actually, no, I've gone into it already. Yeah, I did a CD into it right here. So, but if I CD back out with a dot dot, just so now if I do an ls, then Git Basics team project and Romeo are right next to each other, if that makes sense. Robert, you had your hand up.
Yes, I'm just a little bit confused because on the pre-work, on the setup your local clone for the project's repo, on that box, we have some code that we have to set the git config, config global, and then we cd and we make a directory, and then we cd into that directory, and we do the git clone for the project there. But now you are cloning
Yes.
something different, and I'm just wondering, where should we clone that? Is that under source or into our project?
Not into your project. Good question. So so where are we exactly? So I am in, a place, sort of a top level place that will hold potentially a bunch of repositories, right? There's no, right, in this particular directory level, this is not the CP directory that I'm in is not a repo itself. It's just a top, upper level folder. So when I did a git clone of Romeo, for instance, that I just made, right, as an example, it created a Romeo directory, that is the Git repo. Correspondingly, I did a git clone of Git Basics team project, which created this directory, which also is that other repo. So what's being referred to here, so this is just generic stuff to set up your Visual Studio Code for Git. And then this is actually kind of beginning to create this src directory, and you can make another subdirectory if you want, like I did, called CP. But then you get here, and this is your project team leads repo that they would have created and invited you to collaborate with. And that's what you would clone at this point, if you were basically getting your local machine into a state where you can collaborate on this repo. So that's all separate from what I'm doing now with this Git Basics team project. All I'm doing now is having you pull down that repo kind of on the side so that we can get at some code that will let you set up aliases. So that's all just a kind of a one-time thing, so we can get you some shortcuts into your environment to ease your working with Git. All good? Yeah, source folder is not a Git repo. The CP folder is not a Git repo. Only things that are created by git clone would be Git repos, for instance.
And just to share context, I think we're used to seeing the source directory, source short for sort code, living in our Git repos where it has this code for our repo. And I totally see what you're doing here, Chris. You're saying, all right, this is like all different kinds of source code, and then here's one repo inside that and one inside there. Yeah, I've named that directory code. I've seen other people name it projects. So I actually kind of like that you name it source. That's cool.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. Yeah, Java uses src as well, way down in its hierarchy, as so. But there's nothing special about source. There's no, there's no copyright that Java or React has on that name, so we can use it anywhere we want. I just don't like to type much, so if I could think of something shorter than source, then I would. But three characters is enough. So that's where I'm coming from with that.
Cool.
So CP is even shorter, so I use that as well. So I'm in source/src/cp, and I, at that level, I don't, I'm not in a Git repo yet. I'm just beginning to create them. And that's what I've done here. There's just some junk laying around I don't want to throw away yet, so ignore that. But Romeo is my empty Git repo as if I were a project team lead. And now Git Basics Team Project is this other repo that I have some code I like that you can use too in order to set up some aliases in your Bash or ZSH if you're on Mac environment. So everybody good? Okay, so let's do one thing here and then kind of make this, oh, let's see what 9:30. So yeah, okay, let's do this. All right, so here we are. We've got Git Basics Team Project cloned. Let's CD into this kind of utility repo, you could think of it as. And there is a bin directory there as well. So if we do an ls space bin, let's see what's in here. And a couple of shell scripts as shown by the .sh suffix. And we can use the Unix command cat to see what's in there. Notice we haven't CD'd into bin yet, so we still have to say bin / because we're above that directory. But now we can say bin / cat space bin / git. And I don't know if you do this on your terminal sessions, but you can hit tab to autocomplete. If you have a partial file name typed, then your shell will, if it's set up as typically it is, it will help you autocomplete. So good question. Cat is an alias, or it means concatenate. So it's basically a way, if you're on Windows, you would use the word type. If you're in a DOS prompt to just list the contents of the file. So what I'm doing is listing the contents of bin / get aliases.sh to see what's in here. So here's my command that I just ran. And
Since that's a file, is that text inside the file that you're looking at?
Yes, exactly. Yeah, it's a shell script, which is just, generally ASCII text. And these are bash commands inside of this script that we're getting ready to run. So I've looked at what's in there, and now I'm going to go ahead and run it. And to do that, all I have to do is basically just run it. So same file name, but I didn't say cat. And when I just say the file name, then the bash will assume it's a command that it needs to run. And because it's in bash language, this is a shell script, as in a bash shell script, for instance, it will just go ahead and try to run it. And what it does is set up these aliases. So for instance, notice they all say pretty much, they all say git at the beginning. So these are shortcuts for git commands that you will be using. And the first one, for instance, you use a lot, this ADOG command, short for all -- all -- decorate, O for one line and G for graph. But ADOG is a lot easier to type than all that. So hence the aliases. So if everything, the stars align and everything, then we will be able to just do that. And then you should be able to then just type ADOG, for instance, and see it generate something like this on your screen.
There's a good question in the chat if running that bash script sets up those aliases permanently or just for this specific directory.
Yeah, excellent question. Yes. So if you run it as I just did, it is just for this specific terminal session. So it's not directory based, but it is like terminal window session based. So once I exit out of this terminal, if that's all I had, then I would no longer, when I fired up a new terminal window, then it would not be there in that terminal window. I would have to rerun it to get those aliases. Now
Thank
that
you.
said, there is another script in there.
So Chris, it looks like this isn't working for a good portion of the class.
Okay. What are the symptoms?
It's just for me, when I typed ADOG, it just said ZSH command not found ADOG.
Okay. Did you run the bin/git aliases.sh up here?
Yes. Mhm.
Okay. All right, that's interesting. And what happened when you ran that? Did any response come back?
Nope.
Okay. So one thing you might try is just typing alias and see that just says what it lists basically what aliases are in your environment, of which I have a bunch, but
Okay, I don't have any of the ones that we just ran from that file. I have Python, run, and which command.
okay. So another option you could try is run that cat command again. And then literally copy paste that first line. Copy, paste, and then see if that gives you anything.
Okay, so I just, okay.
Yeah, and folks,
Do I need to
Oh,
be in a certain file to do that, or just from my team basics team project, copy and paste it?
If you can see the contents of it, like so,
Mhm.
and you can copy it, then you should be able to paste. Yeah, just paste it where you're at.
Okay, and then try and run ADOG after that.
Yeah.
Okay, it worked that time. So can I
Okay.
copy and paste all of them at the same time, or I need to do that one by
You
one?
can, yes, you can. Again, if it's inside of VS Code, your mileage is non-deterministic. So I haven't tried it in that context.
I'm just doing it from the terminal. Okay, let's try the other one. Okay, it looks like I tested the top two, so hopefully it's working.
Okay.
When we do that though, and then we see end, is this where we hit Q to get out of that?
So
I tried the ADDOG and it showed me a bunch of stuff, and now I see end.
yeah, you should be able to hit Q to get out of that.
Okay, great.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a pager in the mix there somewhere.
All right. Thanks,
Okay.
Chris. Is that working for everybody else?
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you can get to where you can copy paste this is what we'll use the most in this class, is this ADOG command, because it shows the graph that we're trying to manipulate. So quickly back to somebody's point earlier about persisting this in their environment. If you look at the bin directory, there's another script in there, and I'll go ahead and cat that. This append script. I'm going to use the command K to reduce screen clutter, which is also a handy little keyboard shortcut. So now I just have just this command that I'm running showing up. So, and here's the contents of this. So if the aliases command worked for you, which, if it didn't, then we might have to troubleshoot that. But assuming that did work, then you can use this to actually append those aliases to the end of your profile for whatever shell you're working with in your environment. So this is more bash code that accomplishes the persisting of this these aliases.
So you're saying we copy and paste this block here?
Well, yes, actually that should
Alias didn't
work.
work for us.
Or you can just run it, right? You can just, again, try running it. And it checks to see if it's already there. And if it is, it doesn't modify your profile, but otherwise it will try to append those aliases to your shell's profile. And in that case, when you start up another shell, you should presumably run that profile, and then those aliases will get brought into your shell's environment as well. And you
Sorry,
won't
when
have
you say run that profile, what does,
when you open another shell, the shell will go through some standard locations looking for bash commands that have a like a dot, the dot, they start with a dot, and then they will have a either .zshrc or .zsh underscore profile. And if they're in your home directory, the shell will know to look for those and run them as part of setting up that shell environment.
Gotcha.
So if I do a command in here, then a bunch of stuff happened there. One of which was the bash shell went around looking for a bunch of these initialization scripts, .zshrc, for instance, and ran whatever was in there. So command W. So whatever you put in there is going to get run when another shell starts, is kind of the long story short. And we're just putting in some aliases that we're saying, go ahead and run this whenever you start up a shell, because I'm going to need this to work. So, all right. So if that, the ultimate goal is to type ADOG and see a list of Git gobbledygook that we'll dig into. So now we're getting close to break time. If you guys can get to this point, the only other thing that I would say is let's do two more things and then we'll break. So I'm going to cd ... I'm going to git clone that. Now I'm going to git clone that sample project repo. Walquist, what is it called? Git basic sample project repo. I'm just going to copy paste that. And that for everybody. So let's see. That's what I want to get cloned. So notice I did a cd ... first to get out of my current repo, because Git is not automatically happy with having repos nested inside each other. You can do it, but you have to do a dance with Git submodules first, which we're not going to cover. So otherwise, get up out of your repo before you clone another repo. So there it should be right next to your Git Basics team project. And we can cd in there, tab, S, tab, enter, and run ADOG and see what we get. Okay, that's more interesting than the previous ADOG because it's got branches and merges and as I believe Alicia said, if you see this colon here, then you're in a pager and you can get out of that by doing Q for quit, if that's your experience with running ADOG. So so now for lab/break, I'm sure nobody's colorblind. So there is in Visual Studio Code.
So what was the command you used to see that again? Sorry.
To see this graph,
Yes.
ADOG. That alias should be there if all the above work that we were doing with that script. So then that shows you a Git graph. Let me do this. If that's not working for you with using the bash shell, you can literally just copy paste what I'm about to put into the chat. So that should get ADOG working for you. And so then you've got access to the Git graph of whatever repo you're in. Other access is through Visual Studio Code. We can go to that same place. Let's see, CWalk, so source, CP, sample project repo, and open that. And if you didn't get a chance to do this, now would be a good time, but you can go to get the Git graph plugin and see a Git graph using a visual, much more sort of slick visual presentation than ADOG gives you. However, it is the exact same data. So let me call break time here /lab and have you guys, get the ADOG working if you haven't. And I'm happy to help with that if there's anything to do there. But once that's working, run it in that sample project repo. And then go and also look at that same repo with Git graph, which you may have to install first, and then just kind of see how they look beside each other. Compare what you're seeing because they're showing the same data. So I think it's instructive and important to understand what is being shown. And like for instance, this merge branch on the Git graph. Where is that here? Well, there's matched. So there's one that matches up, right? E96947F seems to correspond to this same line here on Git graph, right?
How do we install Git graph again?
I think there's you're getting a little bit over my pay grade, but I think you can go to extensions and search for Git graph in extensions and look for, this is
It's
it
that
right
top
here.
one, yeah.
Yeah, this guy here. And
How
then
did
it
you
can
say we
show up
open
down
it?
at the bottom once it gets into your Visual Studio Code. Is that working for everybody? And once you have it, you basically just open that. I just closed everything. Hold on. Yeah, you just open that Git basic sample repo with Visual Studio Code, and then click Git graph, and then it will go and, it essentially runs exactly what that Git log command does that we called ADOG to take that information, then just display it, but in a nicer, more visual representation. But yeah, take a look at that.
Got it. Thank you.
And then, make sure that you understand kind of what's being shown and can trace back to what's being shown in ADOG as well. So it's 9:50. Let's take about a 10-minute break and then come back at 10, and then we'll do a quick review and move on to some local manipulations of Git trees. Any